My name is Anders Adolfsson and I'm head of global marketing here at Scandidos. MR Linac has been clinically available for a few years now, and the clinical experience is improving every day. Scandidos has cooperated with the prominent hospitals to address the challenges for patient QA for this technique and developed a very accurate and reliable solution called the Delta4 Phantom Plus MR. Since the introduction of the Phantom, we have impressed the market with our solution and gained prominent customers like UMC Utrecht, Miami Cancer Institute, Thomas Jefferson, Heidelberg University Hospital, and Uppsala University Hospital. With me here today, I have our guest and keynote speaker, Dr. David Tilley from University Hospital in Uppsala. Dr. Tilley has 20 years of radiotherapy experience from the industry, clinic, and academic world, and is now research engineer with focus on MR Linac at the Uppsala University Hospital. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. David Tilley.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to speak about the experience with the MR Linac in Uppsala, and with specific focus on QA and patient QA. But I will start with a bit of a background with the MR Linac and the workflow and some initial experience of the treatments as a setup for later presentation on the QA part. MR Linac, all of you probably know, this is the combination of an MR or integration with a Linac with a goal to have a very precise irradiation guided by superior soft tissue imaging using the MR, and with an adaptive workflow plan of the day. That is sort of the goal of this machine. Just some quick facts about the machine. It's been around for a couple of years, as was mentioned. We were number 14 in the world to go clinical, second in Scandinavia. There's also a lively consortium among the members, over 50 sites with sharing experiences. And in our experience in Uppsala is something I'm going to talk about a bit now. It has been a lot of multiple challenges. A lot of things are the same. You have a Linac and you irradiate patients, of course, but lots and lots are new. The biggest change is the adaptive workflow, and that has not so much to do with that is an MR Linac, but rather the daily adaptation. Our department did not have that much MR experience, so going from conventional treatments to an MR only workflow, while we use a CT plan as a backup, but it's been a challenge. And also the dosimetry is quite, I would say all aspects have a component that is different due to the magnetic field, the Delta4 as well. So it's been a lot of development. But the biggest one is the workflow, and the change is, of course, to do the plan of the day. Conventionally, you do a one treatment plan based on one set of images, and you do the treatment. And now you set up the patient, you do a daily imaging with the MR, and you adapt the plan and treat that, and then you do that the same way next day. So this is quite a change in workflow. And the goal is, of course, to address the uncertainty of where the anatomy is during the irradiation. Our workflow during a session is that we set up the patient and we do planning imaging, which takes a couple of minutes with the MR. Then we do contouring and and treatment planning. And before turning the beam on, we do a verification image, which is the same sequence as the planning image, just to see that the patient hasn't moved in between after the initial imaging and during the treatment planning. And then we turn the beam on and use the real-time imaging capabilities of the machine. We take 2D CINEs for some time to see that the patient is still where he or she should be. And then we turn the beam on. And during that beam on, you can also do motion monitoring, either as a 2D CINEs as is displayed here in this animation. And so this is an example of what it can look like during imaging. And then towards the end of the irradiation, we start another imaging session. So, and then we can post-treatment, we can check that the post-imaging is the same as the other imaging. So we know that confirmation that the fraction was delivered safely. And at the end also we have added now the functional imaging that is more experimental and topic for research. At the session, compared to conventional treatment, this is much more personnel intensive, of course. So we have multiple screens. To the left, there's the normal Linac screen, Integrity, if we're talking about Elekta. And we have a second screen with the information system and the online treatment planning system. We have a session manager, which is the sort of the director of the session, where you start the imaging and you sort of kick off the different activities, and also it's also shown the motion monitoring. And you have an MR console, which is normally silent during this. You don't do anything, but you can if you want to. And then also you have a second screen of the online TPS. It's a mirror of the other screen, so that so two persons can work on the same data without switching chairs. That's the idea. So, and to begin with, we have had two nurses taking care of the patient setup and communication with the patient, a dose planner, one doctor, and one physicist. So 5 people in all, which is quite a lot. This is an evolving process. We're already now evolved such that one of the nurses will do the online dose planning with specific training. And going forward, this will hopefully change so we can be less personnel intensive. The patient takes quite a lot of time. So if we do recontouring at the session, the mean time has been, the numbers are somewhat old, so we're probably a bit faster now, but in average 54 minutes. And the big portion is patient setup in blue, and contouring and treatment planning, and also treatment and in the blue. This has potential to improve, we think, with better tools and also better training of the staff. But automation will be very important. And a question for the future is in what different tasks do the doctors and physicists need to be available? Do they need to be there at all? Do they need to be at part of the session? And so on. And that will be important questions going forward to make for an efficient treatment. What we treated so far, well, we started off easy to gain experience with palliative treatments to begin with. It's a year ago now, pretty close to exactly a year ago, and other treatments in the pelvic area, rectum patients and prostate patients that we have. So for each diagnosis, we work through the different aspects that could be new, the treatment planning and templates and QA work and so on. And we're starting to move towards more challenging sites now where you have motion. We would like also to look at head and neck. Adrenal gland, for instance, which it's subject to breathing motion, has been treated, which is a step forward. So this is an evolving process as well. 14 patients so far, 76 fractions. It's not a lot in a year, but we have ramped up slowly, and now we're treating more patients, and hopefully we can ramp it up further. There are some issues. This is new technology, some interrupts, some where you actually haven't been able to complete the fraction. Only one where the patient has been on the table, and the other two had been detected before the treatment. Also some interrupts during the treatment, but then you have been able to recover to just restart the session and go from there. There's an upgrade on the system as we speak now. The Elekta is working, so we're hoping that the stability will improve. That was our initial experience. Now I will zoom in more about the patient QA and patient QA specifically. The difference between normal treatments is that for patient QA is that the patient is on the table and you can't ask them to get off the table. So you can't really do a measurement while the patient is on the table. At least it's difficult. There's no technology today. So what can we do? Well, we do measurements, but you have to with the Delta4, which I will talk about later, but afterwards. And you can do calculations. We can do calculations before and after. That is what we can do. So our QA philosophy is this is not new, I would say, that it's sort of split into machine QA and patient QA, which is quite normal, I would say. So we have a number of tests checking the machine. And this is, of course, not new for the MR Linac. This is true for all Linacs, I would say. But if you do this split, we have an extended machine QA and specific tests for the patient, and where we want to test that the data, the integrity of the data flowing between the number of systems, the TPS, the information system, and the Linac. We would like perhaps to do independent dose calculation, and that is not something that we have done so far. And we do Delta4 measurements after. In addition to, well, and one thing that was an issue to begin with was actually that the regulations in Sweden, if you really read them to the letter, we would not be able to do these, as the wording was that we had to do measurements, and then they changed this in the new regulations that it has to be verified, and the intention was that the experts are the authorities do not want to say exactly how to do it, that the experts at the clinics should decide that. So that's the reason for the change, and that enables us actually to do this, since we don't have to do measurements before the treatment. Another thing that this machine is that it has an EPID, but it's the field of view is too small, so we can't use it for online patient QA. So we decided to go with the use of log files as a complement to the Delta4 measurements, and that is specifically then to check the data integrity of the system. Shortly about the machine QA, we set up an ambitious program to begin with, and which we have adapted as we go along. Just to mention a few, which relates to the dosimetry. We have a number of other tests regarding the MR, for instance, and the interplay with the MR and Linac as well. But if we concentrate only on the dosimetry, we do daily checks. We check the output with the MVIC and the an in-house developed picket fence test using the MVIC is megavolt image something, meaning the EPID. If I say MVIC, that's what it's called in the MR Linac world. We do weekly tests. That's also where we utilize the Delta4 Phantom. We have a constancy plan, which we measure each week to see that nothing has happened. Monthly, we do more dosimetry tests using the MVIC, but also using the IC profiler, where we test those profiles and output, and reference dosimetry and TPR tests quarterly. This is the current one. We used to do this even more frequent, but this machine dosimetry has been quite stable, so we have been able to relax a bit. But these are constantly re-evaluated to see which one is worthwhile doing at what frequency. And a difference has been where we have done a lot of development, and because each of these, well, maybe not the EPID, but all the rest has been new equipment. The Delta4 is not new, but to us, but the MR compatible one is new, and the IC profiler is new, and the reference dosimetry is also new. So everything has to be MR compatible, and you have to take care always about the effects of the magnetic field. There's been a lot of development. Going to patient QA, we have adopted a procedure where we do pre-verification of a reference plan. The reference plan is what you create before the first fraction. That's the nomenclature that we use, and that is verified using the Delta4 exactly as we would on a conventional Linac. And then we do post verification on the adapted plan. Right now, it's very similar to that, but we do it after the treatment, and we also add the Logfile analysis, where we check that the delivery of each machine settings are according to the specified plan. This is also a subject to change, and once the patient load is ramped up further, we will have to adapt this for us to balance it with the personnel capabilities that we have. The Delta4 Phantom is the MR compatible one is new. We're using this for a little more than a year. We'll be using this. Those also helped us to do a jig that to facilitate the easier and quicker setup, since we can't move the table on this machine, and that means that the plans will be, if the target is not in the center of the patient, it will be an off-center plan. So we will to make the measurement meaningful, we have to also place the Phantom off-center, and those helped us to have this jig to be able to place the Phantom quickly in the right place. Then the positioning is verified with the EPID. In preparation for the first use of this, I think is very much the same as a regular Delta4. We have relative calibration that is, I believe, done by Scandadus, and we do ion chamber measurement to calibrate the diodes to the ion chamber using these 3 fields from 0, 45, and 90. This is all standard procedure. The difference for the MR Linac is that we also have the cryostat that we are irradiating through, and the attenuation of the beam through the cryostat is not constant as a function of gantry angle. So during this procedure, we have to correct for this variation. That is pretty much the same. And then when we do measurements, as normal, we do a correction for the daily output variation, where we use a simple field from 45 degrees to do this. Some results of measurements using the Phantom is here our requirements has been as the same as for regular conventional Linac. The 3% 3 millimeter should be above 96% for the adapted plans. For the reference plan, since that is the basis of all the other plans, we feel that we wanted a bit stricter requirements, requiring at least 98% of the points fulfilling 3% 3 millimeter. We did lots of measurements, in particular 20 plans that were similar to the ones that we were going to start treat. And we saw, here I listed the 2% 2 millimeter score, and we had a mean gamma results of 98.5% of all the points were within that. With some range, we had one plan below 95, but the results I think is very good. And all the delivered plans after that, and all the reference plans as well, has been all but one fraction has had 100% fulfilling 3% 3 millimeters. We had one single fraction. That's why there's a 99.8 there. So very good results. Very encouraging that the system, the dosimetry of the system is quite stable. And as I mentioned earlier, we complement the Delta4 measurements with Logfile analysis. This is not new, and this is something that has been applied for by several other users. In particular, the site in Washington, in St. Louis, in the US, ViewRay, a site that has been treated with the MR Linac the longest in the world. So it's not new. So what do we do with this? Well, the log file contains all the machine settings at 25 Hertz, which is quite extensive. And we developed an in-house tool for this analysis. So we compare that to the treatment plan. And an added bonus, or I wouldn't say bonus, or one thing that Delta4 cannot catch is that since we have a number of interrupts during the treatments, about 10%, which it does not happen necessarily when we deliver this on the Phantom. So then we want to know what the machine has done when continuing the treatment, such that when the interrupt has not caused to execute the plan in some strange way. So then we can stitch together the log files and see that it's done what it's supposed to do. And we also feel that when we're going when we really ramp up the patient load to, let's say, more than 4 fractions a day, it will be hard to do measurements for all fractions. So we would probably start to back off a bit gradually. The reference plan will likely always be measured using the Phantom. But, so then we could also then rely on on the log file analysis. So this tool spits out just a result. It's all automatic, and it spits out a result file where you can see true means that the analysis was okay. So it compares all the machine settings and also calculates the monitor unit maps. So if you place yourself in the isocenter plane and see what the number of monitor units delivered in that plane. And we have requirements on that, and plots might look like this. So the left column is monitor unit map for 2 beams. One beam is 1 row here. So we have log file to the left, and then the second column is the expected monitor unit map from the plan, and then we can take the difference. And in this case, it was the monitor unit maps are within 0.5%. So happy results. So we think that this is a good complement to the Phantom measurements. So in conclusion, then I would say that there's been a lot of development for QA and patient QA for doing adaptive radiotherapy, and for specifically for the MR Linac. A whole new set of equipment is needed for basically everything. The Delta4 Phantom has been very useful, and this will be going forward as well for us. And we are very encouraged by the dosimetry. The gamma results has been excellent. And as you can see there, it's this development was a true team effort. Most of the people that was involved in preparing for the first fraction, which is this picture is taken from well after it. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer it.
Thank you very much, David, for that presentation. And as David mentioned, if you have any questions, please write them down in a chat window. Have you one for you here, David? Are all the plans shared? Do they all plans share the same gamma criteria? And do you use local or global gamma?
We use global gamma. Was the question if that we have the same criteria for all plans?
Yeah, I guess if you have 3%, 3 millimeters for all.
Yeah, there will be a detail that we require. The reference plan, we're a bit more strict. I would say 3%, 3 millimeter is still not that strict, but the reference plan, and if it could happen, it hasn't happened so far, that if we feel that the reference plan is, if we're not able to adapt it, let's say, and there's some kind of issue with it such that we cannot create adaptive plans that will pass patient QA, then we can switch the reference plan between fractions, but then that, so we would take yesterday's adapted plan as the new reference, but then that also has to pass the stricter criteria.
Here we have another one. It's from Wilfred from Utrecht. And thanks for the presentation. Very impressive work on the log file analysis. Did you make comparison between the log file output and the Delta4 measurements?
Yes, we tried to. Well, hi, by the way. We tried to in these 20 preparations plans, but I think if we could see a correlation between the log file errors, because they're always log file errors, even though they are small, and the if we could relate that to the gamma value. But I think you would need to have more plans and a wider spread of plans which actually fails. If we all have plans that succeed, have very, very high gamma value, it's hard to do this correlation.
Yes.
But I tried, but it was hard to see something.
Good, thank you. Another question here is, what is your experience with change of IPID signal with the magnetic field?
Well, we've done, I mean, if we turn it off and on, the magnetic field, that is not something that we have tried because we can't turn it off. But what we rely upon is, this is a pure constancy check. So if the output is the same every day, we feel comfortable with it. And then we also relate that to other dosimetry tests. So if you have a chain of dosimetry tests, so we relate the output of the MVIC to the output of the IC profiler, for instance, if there was a drift or so, that we could see that it's not only the MVIC, or if we can't pick up a drift, then we would see it with IC profiler and so on. But we can't turn off the B field, so we can't test that difference.
And here's a question, I guess, here in the future, how will Uppsala handle the method of working with the MR Linacs? With the MR Linac, number of which employees and things like that?
Yeah, this will be a slow evolution. We're starting to the online dose planning will be done by one of the nurses, is what we will start with. So they will get specific training for doing specifically this. So they will not be trained in doing all treatment planning, but they will be trained in specifically this, the online treatment planning. So that is then one person less. And then going forward, we would like to be such that specifically the doctor, which is the main bottleneck, that they can come and do, perhaps not be part of the entire session or just be called upon when needed. But this is a slow process, I would say. Some other centers have started this and come further to do specific training for their staff to do the online contouring, for instance. But, this is something that we have to evolve.
I have another question here. Each adaptive fraction, do they need QA, or do you do QA for each adaptive fraction, I guess?
Yes, so far we do. We do Delta4 Phantom measurements and log file analysis on each adapted plan. This will also probably evolve, when so far we want to do it just to make sure, and I think we're slowly building up trust and experience that we will start to, in the future we will probably back off, but we're not there yet.
Okay. And here a last question, I guess. The cancer types, you mentioned them. What do you think will be the future? Increased in number?
Yeah,
for certain cases?
I think the indications that we have now will be utilized more, prostate and recti, but we will move to other parts of the body. We've done adrenal gland, a couple of them, which is more challenging, where you have motion.
Yeah.
And I think the system will also offer more motion management techniques, different sequences on the MR and other motion management tools online. So we will go towards where there are more motion.
Yeah.
But we'll see. This is a doctor's call, of course. I'm just a physicist.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tilly. I think this question concludes this webinar, and please take the opportunity to visit our website, where you can find more useful information about our QE solution, and also webinar series about the Delta4 Phantom Plus MR.